Bashar al Assad is a Syrian politician who has been the 19th president of Syria since the 17th of July 2000. In addition, he is the commander-in-chief of the Syrian Armed Forces and regional secretary of the Arab Socialist Ba'ath Party's branch in Syria. His father, Hafez al-Assad, was the president of Syria before him, serving from 1971 to 2000. Born and raised in Damascus, Bashar al-Assad graduated from the Medical School of Damascus University in 1988 and began to work as a doctor in the Syrian army. 4 years later, he attended postgraduate studies at the Western Eye Hospital in London, specializing in ophthalmology. In 1994, after his elder brother Bassel died in a car crash, Bashar was recalled to Syria to take over Bassel's role as heir apparent. He entered the military academy, taking charge of the Syrian military presence in Lebanon in 1998. Political scientists have characterized the Assad family's rule of Syria as a personalist dictatorship. On the 17th of July 2000, Assad became president, succeeding his father, who died in office a month prior. In the uncontested and non-democratic 2000 and 2007 elections, he received 97.29% and 97.6% support, respectively. On the 16th of July 2014, Assad was sworn in for another 7-year term after another non-democratic election gave him 88.7% of the vote. The election was held only in areas controlled by the Syrian government during the country's ongoing civil war and was criticized by the UN, the Syrian opposition and Western countries, while Syria's allies, including Iran, Russia and Venezuela, stated that the election was free and fair. Throughout his leadership, human rights groups have characterized Syria's human rights situation as poor. The Assad government describes itself as secular, while some political scientists have claimed that the government exploits sectarian tensions in the country and relies upon the Alawite minority to remain in power. Once seen by many states as a potential reformer, the United States, the European Union and the majority of the Arab League called for Assad's resignation from the presidency in 2011 after he ordered a violent crackdown on Arab Spring protesters, which led to the Syrian civil war. In December 2013, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Navi Pillai stated that findings from an inquiry by the United Nations implicated Assad in war crimes. The OPCW UN Joint Investigative Mechanism concluded in October 2017 that Assad's government was responsible for the Khan Sheikhan chemical attack. In June 2014, the American Syrian Accountability Project included Assad on a list of war crimes indictments of government officials and rebels it sent to the International Criminal Court. Assad has rejected allegations of war crimes and criticized the American-led intervention in Syria. For attempting regime change, Bashar al-Assad was born in Damascus on the 11th of September 1965. The second son and third child of Anisa Makhlouf and Hafez al-Assad. Al-Assad in Arabic means the lion. Assad's paternal grandfather, Ali Suleiman al-Assad, had managed to change his status from peasant to minor notable and, to reflect this, in 1927 he had changed the family name from Wash to al-Assad. Assad's father, Hafez, was born to an impoverished rural family of Alawite background and rose through the Ba'ath Party ranks to take control of the Syrian branch of the party in the 1970 corrective revolution. Culminating in his rise to the Syrian presidency, Hafez promoted his supporters within the Ba'ath Party, many of whom were also of Alawite background. After the revolution, Alawite strongmen were installed while Sunnis, Druze, and Ismailis were removed from the army and Ba'ath Party. The younger Assad had 5 siblings, 3 of whom are deceased. A sister named Bushra died in infancy. Assad's youngest brother, Majd, was not a public figure and little is known about him other than he was intellectually disabled and died in 2009 after a long illness. Unlike his brothers Bassel and Maher, and second sister, also named Bushra, Bashar was quiet, reserved and lacked interest in politics or the military. The Assad children reportedly rarely saw their father. And Bashar later stated that he only entered his father's office once while he was president. He was described as soft-spoken. And according to a university friend, he was timid, avoided eye contact and spoke in a low voice. Assad received his primary and secondary education in the Arab-French Al-Hurriya school in Damascus. In 1982, he graduated from high school and then studied medicine at Damascus University. In 1988, Assad graduated from medical school and began working as an army doctor at the Tishran military hospital on the outskirts of Damascus. 4 years later, he settled in London to start postgraduate training in ophthalmology at the Western Eye Hospital. He was described as a geeky IT guy during his time in London. Bashar had few political aspirations, and his father had been grooming Bashar.